Okay, let's get going today. I guess the people will start jumping in, but they're not going to miss much. It'll just be my introduction. So, firstly, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our 7th webinar in this series as we explore how tax technology can help you. A slightly different topic today, and hope one that you do find useful. Natalie, if you can just move us on one slide. As always, I'm just going to do a quick couple of housekeeping points and then we're going to jump into today's main event. So today's session will be recorded. We have an opportunity for questions, so please do use the Q&A functionality throughout on Zoom and not the chat. There will be a follow-up session for today in terms of giving us an opportunity to have a bit of a deeper dive. And as always, we'll keep it to 30 minutes. So onto our main event. I'm Ian Bowden, tax partner and head of BDO's Tax Automation Group. We run these webinars to help explore the art of the possible. We wanted to help raise awareness for the great options that are available and really just try to help you find a better way. The concept is we pick a different topic each month with a special guest. We've covered quite a bit of ground, lots of different taxes in the first 6 of these. So please do check out the videos of anything you've missed on our website. I did mention today's session would be slightly different. As many of you know, as a team, we focus on 3 key areas. Our previous sessions really have focused on that second area that we look at, which is the third-party specialist market. And we've spoken to many of the leading vendors. Today, slightly different. We are looking at our area 1, and that's very much making the most of your existing systems or sweating the asset. Delighted to be joined today by Rob Grace. Rob's a VP at Namos Solutions. Namos, one of the leading Oracle partners, and we're really lucky to have Rob with us today. He's been with Oracle for his entire career, and he's going to take us through their systems and how they can help. So firstly, thank you very much for joining us, Rob. Really do appreciate it. Before we jump to Rob, as always with these sessions, we like to provide a quick market overview on today's topic. And joining me this morning is our very own Scott Mills, one of our senior specialists, who's going to talk to us all about all things Oracle. Over to you, Scott.
Thank you, Ian, and good morning, everyone. So as Ian said, I'm one of the senior managers and senior implementers here in the tax automation team. And I'm just here to give you a little bit of an overview of what we're seeing in the market, as well as how tax fits into the wider Oracle stack. So what we're seeing a lot of in the market at the moment is when we're speaking to tax teams, we're seeing a lot of teams that have just accepted long and difficult processes in their year ends, just as the norm, and they've accepted that for a number of years. And there's been a little bit of a shift in mentality recently, whether through coming to these kind of webinars or whether through speaking to their network. A lot of companies at the moment are putting in place technology which is really helping to speed up and improve these processes. Now, when I say processes, this can be your year-end processes, interim processes, or even your VAT reporting processes. There's a lot that can be covered in these systems. What is driving a lot of this change at the moment is regulatory change in the market. So we have things like Making Tax Digital for corporation tax coming in, Pillar 2 and UK SOX for some of the larger companies, which are all driving a real momentum towards automation. All of these are coming in the next 5 years. So it's making a lot of companies think now how they need to reflect their technological aims to meet those goals. Now, in a lot of cases, a lot of companies are still using Excel-based models. Now, with these changes that are coming in, these are no longer going to be suitable. There needs to be digital traceability through the systems to meet these requirements. So we're seeing a lot of companies reaching out to us to see actually how they can meet these. Now, when a client first speaks to us, one of the first things that we look to do is understand their existing processes, their existing systems that they've got in place, and their technological strategy going forward. Now, why do we do that? Well, because often there's opportunities to leverage a lot of the existing capabilities and processes that are being used within the company. And we can do things such as leveraging licenses that are already there. And it makes things cheaper and much more efficient to put in place for the company rather than doing a whole overhaul and a whole new system. Now, there are a lot of companies and technologies out there in the market at the moment who can meet your goals. And one of those is Oracle. So this is the one we're looking at today, and we're joined by Rob from Namos, who deals especially with Oracle systems. Now, I've got a slide on the screen here which just shows how tax fits into the overall Oracle stack. Now, I'll just do a little bit of decoding here, because I know a lot of people won't come from the systems world. So ERP is enterprise resource planning. So that's a lot of the transactional data. So you've got things like your general ledgers, fixed asset details, and all that kind of transactional data there. EPM is enterprise performance management. That's where all of that data is kind of sucked together and consolidated and can be used for reporting and analysis. Now, that comes in really handy for things such as tax and tax reporting when we're looking at consolidated numbers. And you can see here, there is an EPM system for your finance. So when you're doing your financial consolidation, and alongside that, there's a tax EPM which sits within the Oracle stack. Now, within that tax EPM, there's tax reporting functionality. There's functionality for doing transfer pricing and for your narrative reporting, so actually producing your outputs for your accounts and your account reporting. And it's also useful for reporting to auditors as well. So there is a real good tax functionality within this stack. And actually, if you're buying into the wider Oracle product, which some of your companies may have already done, tax is included within that EPM cloud platform. So it's something that you could really look to leverage as a quick win for the company. I'm going to hand over to Rob now, who take you through Oracle in a little bit more detail. So over to you, Rob.
And just before Rob jumps in, the other thing in that as well is Oracle are bringing out new modules all the time, including a new Pillar 2 module as well, which you'll see on the next version of this diagram. But sorry to interrupt. Over to you, Rob.
Morning all. Thanks, Ian, for the opportunity to present this morning. Is sound all okay?
Yeah, we are great.
I'm going to share the screen. So just, I just need, it says host is disabled screen sharing. Can we?
Natalie, can you set that up?
There we go. Thank you. Nice and clear coming through.
Yeah, we've got you. All good, Rob.
So, morning, everyone. This morning, what I really want to do is I've got some standard slides, which is about Namos. I'm going to go through those quite quickly. If they start to animate and I lose you, stop me. But I'm really getting to the bit of why you've joined the call this morning about the customer case study and some real life examples of how we optimize it. So if I do start to rush it a bit and you lose me, please stop. Great to be here. I'll just go through the agenda. We've got about 15 minutes, so I'm going to keep it quite short and sharp. Quick intros, a bit about Namos, and then get into those case studies. So a bit about myself. I've always been introduced on the previous slide. Basically, I was with Oracle for 106 quarters. I started out, don't worry, I'm not going to go through the whole career, but I started out in the big e-business suite global consolidation. So companies like Unisys, Michelin, Pfizer, how they did that first generation of global consolidation into multinational shared services and how our technology enabled that. And then I went through Oracle applications, supporting our customers for the next 20 so years. So yeah, took me to 35 countries and 5 continents, and it's been all in that application space. And I recently joined Namos to build on the great foundation they've got of managed services and take it sort of to the next place, which we'll talk about. Namos, it's a UK-based company. It's about 170 employees, you can see, and basically our vision and mission is big enough to deliver, small enough to care, and you'll see some of our customers in it. And the real value proposition is we bring in a lot of expertise, we bring in a lot of user community, and that links to how we can optimize, because we look at it from the user side as well as from the technology vendor side. And also we know our strengths and weaknesses. So we also partner with partners such as BDO in tax specialization areas. You'll see a partnership later in a case study with a small foreign exchange provider, which is how we optimize. But that's us. We're here. We really focus on those 3 values of the expertise and trust, and basically, you know, that's really our differential if we want to be the most recognized partner in Oracle. Multiple award winning, you know, we pride ourselves on our certifications. We were the first globally to get the service track, which is basically accreditation from Oracle. And only last week at the UK User Group, which is voted for by User Group, We were nominated for 8 awards and we had a bit of a clean sweep with 8. So we're still on track and still doing well. I'm very proud of that achievement, and also proud that our employees are proud to work for us with the best companies results. Again, the typical slide of all the customers, you can see it's a nice mix between private sector and public sector, and a nice blend across those group. So I think getting into how we help with all that skill and expertise, how we help you leverage that Oracle system is sort of in a couple of key areas. And those areas really are about how do you operate that system with your target operating model, and not just about your IT org, but your whole shared service strategy, your business unit strategy. And I'll come on to an example in a minute about that. And actually then how do we optimize the system to support you in delivering those business objectives for those business units. And then at the same time, understanding your business direction and your business goals is understanding the roadmap of the product and the solution, so we can match that together so you can leverage and get that return on investment that you need from the initial investment and continued investment in the Oracle solution. And that slide just talks about some of the things that we do to help that, including health checks. The value of managed services, again, I think that's repeating what we've gone through and how we use specialist partners and technology. I'm going to move over that one. And then basically we split down how we bring that value add. I think the real piece here is the community and the influence, and the fact that we are on partner adoption boards, but also what that allows us to do with Customer Connect is a platform to connect you as users and customers, so we can share best practice and leverage those gains for you as an organization. This is something that we do, which is basically, it's very small. I'm assuming you can't read it, but what we do is we analyze your estate and we look at what you own, what you've deployed, where the gaps are. And again, from a business benefits point of view, work with you to say, and it's something we call a customer success plan, but basically work on that roadmap of adoption with you. If you already own this, so you've made the investment, let's not just put it in for the sake, but if there's a business goal that matches that and increases your return, then let's do that together, and we recommend that moving forward.
Just on that, just to kind of to give some context there, Rob, you know, what's the typical things that people miss when you look at these types of diagrams? What's the key areas that people have not deployed that could gain benefit from?
So I think there's 2 areas. There's always pieces like people may, when they go live in a sort of pressured financial environment, they may hold on procurement and putting self-service procurement in because they just want to get the ledger secured and get that piece done. So we see that quite often as a quick win if people have de-scoped that or not focused on it. The other thing that I've noticed is the sort of leverage of cross pillar, and that's an Oracle term, and I'm conscious there's people not on from Oracle. And basically, you know, there's great functionality for workflow and steering users through processes in HCM called journeys, and people do that. What I've noticed is people don't leverage it for period end close processes, and you know, you've got a compliance piece there of guaranteeing that people follow the same process every time, and guided learning. And also we find that, you know, if the users only use the system maybe at quarter end, then a tool like Journeys can then guide them. They don't have to relearn. They've got that sort of knowledge in the system. So there are a couple of areas. And then the other area is this help desk functionality, which again, because it's in our HCM suite, tends to be left to HCM queries. It can do all sorts of employee queries. Yeah. And then finally, not to answer why, is then sort of leveraging out the EPM and the financial analysts, and sort of, you know, we do a lot of work looking at removing spreadsheets and getting those into the systems to get the data, you know, real time in one place, and sort of decommission some of those spreadsheets that we all know that are out there that are relied on. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
It did.
Cool. So the next one is it's a case study, and basically you may be able to recognize it, those that are on the order with the stats, but basically they came to us. They were having a few years ago now, but they needed to divest very quickly. They had 40 legal entities across the globe that they need to sort of divest into a group, and then obviously do their fiscal reporting on those consolidated 40 entities. One of the challenges they had is their stakeholders were predominantly US, UK, Europe, and South Africa based. So one of the things we did, which, you know, we talk about leveraging the asset, is we used the currency reporting ledgers along with the FX loader, so that now at month-end close, there's real-time balances for the 4 key currencies: sterling, dollar, euro, and rand. And that allows them, in the past, they used to sort of have a delay between those reporting timelines as it was all converted, and they can look at the business how they want to do that. Interesting, that fits into the point that you were raising there, Ian, is the fact that that was the priority, was to get the ledgers in, get the entity demerged, the group entity demerged as fast as possible. And again, that was the next phase. We then started to pick up procurement intelligence, reporting on that. And that was the next phase after we'd done that. And again, it goes back to, I think, what I was saying earlier, of that sitting down with a client, and we understand the footprint you've either procured or could procure, but it's actually really understanding the business goals and what you're trying to achieve, and breaking those down into wins for us both, so we can deliver them sort of in that phased approach. And not only does that stop the corporate shock of a big system arriving, but it increases adoption, because what we're trying to do with the Oracle system is, and what Namos really focuses on, is you want to create a base of professional, curious users. So it's not a system doing to them, it's their system, and they're coming to us to say, you know, what about this? We're trying to do this. We've got this sheet here. Yeah. One of the services that we offer, which I think is really overlooked, and it's quite a simple one, is post sort of go live of a phase, is to sort of return and actually, and it's easier now post COVID, it was harder to do in the COVID times, but actually walk the floor and see, are the screens turning from spreadsheets to Fusion application screens, and actually start to see what the adoption is, and is there some onboarding training. We found with one client that the high adoption was all the new people because they've been through the training, and the laggard adopters were the people that have been there a long time and trying to hold on to old systems. So we do a program and agree with them on that. And I think that's sort of key examples of how we sort of look at that, as I say, that financing operation going beyond the ledgers, and then obviously getting into enterprise performance management and getting into the sort of whole modeling, planning and budgeting and reporting. That was the key example there. I'm just looking at my notes.
And just to kind of add another kind of overlay to something else that we're doing with the Namos group that Scott and I are doing at the moment is the, as Scott mentioned at the beginning, the tax add-on effectively that comes as part and parcel of it. So what we found is it's the opportunity to sweat the asset, to understand what you've already got and what you've already spent money on. If you're in a tax office now and there's somewhere in the organization that's using NetSuite or that's using core Oracle, and they may well have bought some of these things, some of these core modules can be configured and used for tax purposes. You know, you'll already know from a VAT perspective that it's really important to try and look at how you embed some of the controls into the kind of the core Oracle solutions and be able to produce your VAT returns in a more cost-effective way. One of the projects that Rob and the team and Scott are doing at the moment is looking at actually the organization hadn't realized that they had access to the tax EPM module, which then gave them a transfer pricing module, a tax provision module, a narrative reporting module, and a submission area. And as part of the tax provision, which is kind of where they started, they wanted to add in the ability to move away from the spreadsheets and move to this provision process, but they didn't realize that the Oracle tool already offered country by country reporting. They were paying a separate license for that. and it's bringing out the pillar 2 type of side of things now. So we've been able to have those conversations. So they've been able to get rid of 2 or 3 products that the tax function had bought separately. They've been able to convince their CIO that this is a better way to go, because all of the data is within the Oracle stack, and the ability to move from one Oracle product to another Oracle product is very, very easy. It's increased their kind of traceability as we kind of go through. And what the team have been able to do is piggyback off the transformation that Namos are doing with them to be able to add in this tax module. They don't have to pay any additional costs for the kind of licensing for it. It was just a one-off implementation. And as Rob said, being able to kind of walk the floors a little bit and try and identify where some of the Excel spreadsheets are now no longer needed. The tax function now have a solution that works for them, and they are starting to look at a phase 2 at how do we do transfer pricing and things like that in the tool. So I've been really impressed with, this sweating the asset that we talk about, this ability to try and get the most out of what you've spent and done, knowing that there are workflow modules in there that are useful, knowing that there are tax modules in there that are useful and can be used for other things. And groups can get creative. The narrative reporting, which is a glorified mail merge, sorry to dumb it down a bit, Rob, but ultimately we've seen groups look at transfer pricing and look at how we can build the documentation around that. So I've really enjoyed the journey and exploring how the extra modules can help clients, and they just don't realize they've got them. But sorry to interrupt.
No, pleasure. I'm just going to talk about some examples. Just want to leave that slide on. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed, and I don't know the audience we've got, if we've got people with operations, with global operations, but one thing that is really often missed with Oracle is the sheer amount of work they do for localizations in the finance area. So for example, when I was deployed in Italy years ago, we were doing all the Libro Generale activity and code is all part of the system. We've got lots of localizations that we maintain within the system for each country in Europe and some for the US. And again, a lot of people, when they start from a country, and let's say the UK, will look at that requirement and focus on that. And I encourage everyone that's doing global to look at that as well, because it's there. And a lot of companies use off-system spreadsheets and tools to do all that sort of work. And again, that's within the system. I think that's a key area that people can look at as well. And again, I think I remember the conversations about when we were doing that, then bringing that together. And of course, you're all more expertise than me, but the tax implications of all those different countries as well. Some of that functionality is aware and is in the product. So that's another example of an area that we can look at. But it's a combination of understanding that strategic need and the focus, because there's a balance between, there's some really quick wins of spreadsheet replacement and activity, but then also there is looking at balancing it with that strategic roadmap and the process. But again, talking to us allows us to say, oh, we've done that somewhere else, or we know that that's in the product. Yeah. And then if it's a specialist area, we work with fab partners like Ian and the team at BDO, and when we bring that together to give you the benefit as much as we can from the system.
Well, thank you very much, Rob. I had a couple of quick questions, but last chance for anybody to start adding anything into the Q&A section. If there's anything specific of your Oracle stack, you're thinking about Oracle. Rob's a bit of a whiz in this area, so it'll be might as well look to pick his brains while we've got him. So if anybody can add them in, then we will pick them up at the end. Just from me, while people are frantically typing away, Rob, and so we've kind of looked at the various stacks and stuff that are there. In your experience, what's the one module, the one area that everybody should be looking at in terms of taking advantage of it to make the most of what they've got?
So in its form, and it's got multiple modules, but definitely the enterprise planning modules, the EPM modules that came out of Hyperion, the reporting, the flexibility in there is definitely an area that people are looking at. And I've noticed that reporting can quite often get de-scoped in phase ones and sort of cut down, because it is quite hard to do that reporting strategy and not just transfer your old ones to a new tool and actually look at what the business benefit. And that even an audit of a report, we know that, you know, when we go into a customer, there's thousands of reports, but actually that module, I believe, has so much capacity and capability that we should be, you know, the customers should be using it more.
And we've been asked the question, what does that enterprise planning module do, Rob, in layman's terms?
So in layman's terms, it's your fiscal planning and budgeting, reporting against that, and it's building also those sort of, we call it fusion analytics, but the data cubes of reporting on progress against budgets, progress against targets, you know, your typical corporate reporting cube.
Yeah, and I guess for me, it's people may think of it as a consolidation system, and I think there's been a really interesting move in the market in recent times, where if you're a group that's quite acquisitive and you've bought businesses or you've been merged with other areas, what we tend to see is, in 10 years ago, the move was that everyone would look to centralize to one ERP system. But what we're seeing more at the moment is that businesses who have acquired other businesses will let them run on their existing platforms, because at some point they might sell those off and there's no point migrating them over. But you still need to be able to consolidate and bring that information in. And from a tax perspective, they've got some numbers in different formats. So how do you bring it together? So in my head, the EPM tool was a perfect spot to be a glorified bucket to store all of the data from various systems, to bring it in. And once you've got it in that bucket, and I guess where Rob's going with this is that ability to slice and dice it and give you the views from that side of things. So from a finance perspective, it could be budget planning and forecasting, that side of things. From a tax perspective, that's where I want to go for my tax provision numbers, because I don't have to source it from 20, 30 data sources, various spreadsheets. It's already consolidated. Hopefully the FX numbers are already in there as well, because we can do a lot of our FX movements at that level. And that's the source of data. That's the data warehouse, the magic source. For some groups, it is just at a trial balancing level and a bit more summary level in there. But there are groups now, because of nervousness about lots of ERP systems, that they're bringing in more. And that Oracle module has transfer pricing capabilities in it now, which cost allocation, which has never been really done before, but that's working really well. And we've got a few groups looking at that. So hopefully that answers the question. It's a big bucket that we can kind of slice and dice information in.
And I mean, it's interesting you talk about strategy. I was in the city yesterday with customers who are exactly that. They've just acquired in US and Australia, and they're sort of saying, do we keep them standalone and put EPM across the top, or do we put them into one instance? What's the whatever? And we had quite an interesting sort of pluses and minuses. There's no right answer, but we did the consequences of those decisions. And I think, yeah, people are really thinking about that now with the level of activity in certain markets of merger and acquisition.
Yeah, and we've had another one in terms of, can EPM tools help with VAT reporting? So I'll have a first stab at that. It depends if there's enough granular data brought into these big buckets of information. So traditionally with Oracle systems, no, because people are bringing it in at a summary level. But there are groups now, because of exactly Rob's point, that there's lots of different ERP systems. If they bring the data in at a transaction line level, then absolutely yes. And it can help bring together and consolidate that information. But where the VAT stuff tends to reside in the Oracle stack is in the ERP system, the core accounting side of things. So if you have the Oracle ERP, that's where predominantly the classifications and the categorizations are. And there's an Oracle e-business tax suite as well, which does a little bit more around getting into the determination side of things. But EPM usually isn't your spot for that. Any more questions? Conscious we're coming up to 10:30 and I do like to finish promptly. Hopefully we've been able to kind of appreciate it. It's very difficult in this half an hour to kind of cover everything Oracle. Rob's offered to give us another hour or so of his time for any Oracle clients out there that want to have a deeper dive in, a bit more specific into their platforms, their stacks, how tax, how finance can take advantage of the modules that you've already got. Rob's kindly volunteered that, so do look out for those invites. But if there aren't any other questions, it just leaves me to thank Scott for joining us and giving us his views, and really do appreciate Rob joining today from Namos Solutions to give us his insights and his, I can't remember how many quarters it was now, but it sounded like a lot, Rob.
106 quarters.
106 quarters of experience of working with Oracle solutions and making them work for clients. So thank you all very much. Hope everyone has a great day, and see you at the next one of these in a month's time. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.